Daddy's taking us to the zoo today. My 7-year-old niece Chloe said that to me with the biggest, sweetest smile on her face. And then she pointed right at my husband, David. Not her father, my husband. I just stood there in my sister's hallway, clutching a bag of groceries, while my entire world shattered into a million tiny pieces. Because David wasn't just having an affair with my younger sister, Hannah. He was living a completely separate life with her, raising 2 kids right under my nose for 6 whole years. If you're new here, subscribe, I post a new story every day. Okay, so let's rewind for a minute, because to understand how deeply messed up this is, you need to know how we got here. I was married to David for 8 years. 8 years of thinking I had a devoted, quiet, hard-working guy. He was a consultant, or at least that's what he told me. He traveled constantly for work, 3 days a week, every single week, 2 towns over. I never questioned it. He brought home a good paycheck, he paid his half of the mortgage, and when he was home, he was sweet. And my sister, Hannah. She moved out to that same nearby town 6 years ago. She told the family she had a high-profile job, but she kept her personal life completely locked down. She had 2 kids, Chloe and little Leo, but she always claimed the father was an ex who wasn't in the picture and preferred to stay anonymous. My parents and I respected her privacy. We sent birthday gifts, we visited occasionally, but Hannah always made sure to schedule our visits when David was away on business trips. Now, here's where I'd have lost it. Looking back at all of this, they had set up a literal schedule to keep me in the dark. Whenever David was working, he was at Hannah's house. He was playing dad to her kids. He was paying her rent. He was living 2 completely separate lives, 40 minutes away from each other. I'll be honest, I didn't expect what came next, because who would ever suspect their own sister and husband of pulling off a double life? The truth came out on a random Tuesday. Hannah had mentioned she was down with a terrible flu, so being a good big sister, I decided to drive over to her place unannounced to drop off some groceries and chicken soup. I didn't call ahead. Why would I? I was just doing a nice gesture. I used the spare key under her mat, walked into the kitchen, and that's when Chloe ran out, super excited, saying her daddy was taking them to the zoo. Then David walked out of the master bedroom holding 3-year-old Leo, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. He froze. Hannah walked out behind him, froze too. Wait, read that part again in your head and imagine the absolute terror in that room. David dropped his keys on the floor. He tried to say, "It's not what it looks like." I mean, standard cheater response, right? Not what it looks like. Your niece literally just called you daddy while you're holding a toddler in your sister's house on a Tuesday morning. Would you have screamed right there, or would you have gone dead silent? Let me know below, because I completely shut down. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the groceries. I just turned around, walked out to my car, locked the doors, and sat there while my hands shook so violently I couldn't put the key in the ignition. David came running out in his socks, banging on my window, crying, begging me to listen. I didn't open the glass. I started the engine, backed out of the driveway, and drove straight to my mother-in-law's house. His mom, Evelyn. Evelyn is a deeply traditional, religious woman who absolutely adored me and raised David on her own after her husband passed away. She practically put David on a pedestal as the standard of a good, moral man. I walked into her living room, sat her down on the couch, and told her everything. I told her David wasn't on a business trip. I told her where he was, who he was with, and that he had 2 children with my sister. Evelyn's face just drained of all color. She didn't defend him. She didn't make excuses. She just sat there, clutching her chest, utterly shattered. While I was sitting there with Evelyn, David started spamming my phone with calls and texts. Please don't tell anyone. We can talk about this. Hannah needed help. It just turned into something else. Just pathetic, cowardly excuses. Then the front door clicked open. David had driven like a maniac from Hannah's house straight to his mom's, guessing I might be there. He walked into the living room, sweating, pale, looking like a ghost. He looked at me, then he looked at his mother. Evelyn stood up. She didn't scream at him either. The disappointment in that room was heavier than any yelling could ever be. She looked at her only son and said, "You are a monster." I raised a liar and a betrayer. David tried to step toward her, saying, "Mom, please, I love them both, I couldn't choose." Evelyn slapped him straight across the face. A sharp, ringing crack that echoed off the walls. She pointed to the front door and told him to get out of her home and never set foot inside again until he had fixed the destruction he brought onto 2 families. He looked at me, begging with his eyes, but I pulled my wedding ring off my finger, set it on Evelyn's coffee table, and walked out right past him. I packed my bags, rented an apartment, and hired the ruthless divorce attorney I could find. I didn't just file for divorce, I went after everything. And my parents, when they found out what Hannah had done, they disowned her on the spot. My dad told her she died to them the day she slept with her sister's husband. The fallout from this was total and complete destruction. Because David was using marital assets, our money, to finance Hannah's house, pay her bills, and buy gifts for those kids, my lawyer tore him apart in financial discovery. He was forced to sell our house and give me the vast majority of the equity to make up for the thousands he secretly siphoned off over 6 years. He lost his reputation, his marriage, and his relationship with his mother. Evelyn refused to speak to him for over a year, completely heartbroken that the son she raised turned out to be capable of such calculated cruelty. And the worst part for David and Hannah, they thought they could finally just be together publicly once the secret was out. But without the secrecy, the excitement, and my money funding their little double life, reality hit them like a freight train. They started fighting constantly over finances, custody, and the sheer guilt of what they did. They broke up within 8 months of the exposure. Now David is living in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment, paying heavy spousal support to me and child support to Hannah, while working overtime just to stay afloat. Hannah is completely isolated from our family, raising 2 kids alone, realizing that the man she stole wasn't a prize at all, just a coward who runs when things get hard. I took 2 years to heal, focus on myself, and rebuild my life from the ground up. Looking back, I realize that when people live double lives, they think they're genius actors playing a game. In reality, they're just building a house of cards, and when it falls, it crushes them worse than anyone else. If you were in my shoes, would you have ever spoken to your sister again, or is that a lifetime cutoff for you? Let me know your verdict in the comments section below, I read every single one. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for daily Reddit stories every single day. I'll catch you guys in the next one.